Hey, welcome to another week of Kingdom Builders Credit Repair TV show and podcast. Thank you for joining us today. We are super excited that you are here. Come on in the room. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If this is your first time watching, we are coming to you today to talk to you about credit and financial tips with yours truly, Michelle Green. That's right. We are here to talk to you about finances, about how to manage your credit, how to keep things in order. And today we are going to be talking about the changes that have taken place with student loans. How many of y'all have student loans out there? How many of you are dealing with the student loans? Listen. We know that there are several of us out here who have had to go to school to get an education. We know that there are so many of us who have had to borrow loads of money, and some of us have actually lived off of the student loan debt. So, today, what we are doing is we are going to talk about the new changes that took place on July the 1st of 2026. That's right. There are some significantly new changes that have taken place since July the 1st of 2026. And we want to make sure that you know exactly what those changes are. So we are going to get into the topic today. But before we do, first we want to make sure that number one, you understand that we at Kingdom Builders Credit Repair want you to understand how credit works. So, what is credit? Just initially, just in case there's somebody out here who is watching that does not understand what credit is. Credit is your ability to be able to borrow money from some sort of financial institution. So, if there is a financial institution that will lend you the money because you are trying to buy something that you don't have enough money for right now, then this is how we begin the stages of having credit. Credit is based on five components. First, it's based off of your reputation. So you got to have a really good reputation of paying people back. Now, if you're just starting out and you don't have any money, or you don't have any credit rather, but you do have some money, you're working a job, you're working a business, you are doing something to bring in an income, and you have a little bit of money, then you do have the ability to be able to borrow the money based on even if you don't have anything. But there are levels of credit. There are lower levels, middle class levels, and upper class levels of credit. And if you don't know where you fall in the ranking, then that's what Kingdom Builders Credit Repair is here for. Credit is based on five components. The major five components are: how much credit do you need to borrow? How many times have you paid back a creditor that you borrowed money from, that you had to maybe get a vehicle, a house, or a credit card so you can buy some clothes or shoes or accessories? How many times have you paid the creditor back? That's the second equation of your credit score. The third equation of your credit score is based on your credit history. So your credit history is a list of how many years you have had credit over the past 2 years to 10 years and even longer. If you have had an account that's been open for 10 years, that's going to give you a really good credit history. If you've had an account that's only been open for a year, that's not really giving the new lender or creditor that you may want to borrow money from, that's not really giving them the opportunity to be able to say that they trust you enough to be able to give you a actual line of credit. The other two components, we've already talked about three, are based on the types of credit that you have. So the type of credit that you have, such as, like I just said, a house, a vehicle, a credit card, a personal loan, whatever it is that you need as a type of credit, that's a part of your score equation. And the last thing that completes the whole credit score range is going to be based on whether or not you have any new credit? Do you have any new credit that has been established? Are you actually participating in the new lines of credit that are readily available to you every single day? There are billions of creditors all over the world that provide all types of services. So, whatever it is that you need, just know that as it relates to credit, you have the opportunity to be able to get whatever you need. So if it's a loan, you need to borrow some money. If it is a vehicle, you need some transportation. If it is a cell phone, you have the ability to put that on credit. But you have to make sure that you are applying all of the components. How much debt are you actually borrowing altogether? What is your ability to be able to pay everything back on time? What is your credit history of allowing all of the different accounts that you have obtained? How long have they been open? The history of them being open and being taken care of. What are the types of credit that you have? And lastly, what is the actual new credit that you have recently established over a period of the last 2 years of your credit history? So we want to make sure that we understand credit is your ability to be able to borrow the money that you don't have today, that you want to get from a lender or some sort of financial institution, also known as a creditor. And we want to be able to do right by them with our good reputation so that we can continue to have good credit. Credit scores range from 300 to 850. And if we really want a good credit score, we have to abide by the credit game. We have to abide by the rules of the credit game. Okay. All right. So enough about the explanation of what credit is and what the components of your credit score are based off of. Let's talk about what our topic is for today. So first of all, I want you to know that we have a whole set of new changes that have come down the line as it relates to student loans. Student loans have now, as of July the 1st of 2026, make sure you're coming closer, come closer to me so that you can hear me very loud and clear. Student loans have now been transferred from your usual service providers, such as Sally Mae, Nelnet, direct loans, U.S. Department of Education, um, Mohila. There are several different service providers, no matter the name. All of the student loans as of July the 1st of 2026 have now been transferred over to U.S. Treasury. That's right. The United States Treasury Department has now decided that they are taking over all of the student loans. So no matter who your provider was before July the 1st of 2026, now your student loans are all being transferred to the U.S. Treasury. Now, that is a very big change that has come down the line. And what we need to know about it is that now that the changes have happened, you need to be contacting the U.S. Treasury concerning your student loan debt as soon as possible. Why is it so important? Because what this means is no longer do we have the same opportunity to be able to take care of our student loan debt like we used to. We don't have the same requirements, there aren't the same rules, and it's not the same companies that we used to deal with that are going to be taking over the student loan. So when we think about US Treasury, what we do want to understand is this means that the government is now taking over all of the student loans. So when we think about our nation, when we think about the way that our administration is established, we also want to understand that this can be something that can take a toll on your life in a negative way or a positive way. But as long as you're informed, you can make the right decision. So let's talk about it. First of all, now that we know that the loans are all being transferred to the US Treasury, what we want to understand is there are only two plans that we will have an option for. So the first plan is going to be the standard repayment plan with fixed monthly payments over a period of 10 to 25 years. And the second plan, and let's talk about the standard repayment plan for just a second. What this means is there is going to be your total amount of student loan debt that you have borrowed, and it's going to be lumped together. Okay, they're going to look at every loan that you have borrowed. They're going to look at the balance and they're going to say, hey, we are going to set up fixed monthly payments over a period of 10 to 25 years. That's going to be your cap. 25 years. So for those of us who have had student loans for maybe 20 years already, maybe we have had a student loan for maybe 10 or 15 years already. What we want to understand is there may be a rule around how long you already have had your loan, and the ability to pay that back may not allow you an extended timeline of 10 to 25 more years. That means that your total amount of years that you have to pay the loan back in monthly fixed installment payments may be a much larger monthly amount than what it was before. Now, before, many of us had our student loans deferred or in forbearance, which means that we were not paying on the student loans currently. But now we are changing to the US Treasury, which is going to require us to have to pay back our student loans. So even though we've been into a comfortable state of mind concerning the student loan debt to the point where we have really been cruising through having this education, getting as much education as we wanted to, and not really having to concern ourselves with paying back the student loans, especially since COVID, because COVID happened and nobody was able to even live basically. So we kind of put that on the back burner, but now it's being brought to the forefront. So we don't want to take this lightly, because if you are not paying back your student loans, if you don't have something in place to actually make sure that those loans are taken care of, then guess what's going to happen? They are going to garnish wages and also come for your refund check. That's right. If you normally receive a refund check at the end of the year or the beginning of the year when you do your taxes, then those refund checks and the possibility of being able to come after the money that you are earning in income with your job or your business can possibly be in question of being taken. So we don't want to have to deal with that. So first, we want to understand that the standard plan is a monthly plan that allows us to pay a fixed rate over the next 10 to 25 years. Okay, we got that. Good. The second option is what is called the new repayment assistance plan, or the RAP. RAP. All right. The RAP is going to be similar to the income based repayment plan, but this is more so income driven options that are setting payments at a 1 to 10% interest rate of your adjusted gross income. So if we look at our taxes again, and we think about how much money do we actually make as an income. When it relates to our taxes and how we have to adjust our income based on our expenses, if we have anything that is itemized, such as the interest off of a mortgage, if we have anything like the property taxes from our vehicles or maybe from a business, if we have a profit and loss statement because we are self-employed or we have a actual organization where we have employees and independent contractors, interns, or volunteers, we got to think about what is my total amount of money that I actually bring in versus the amount of money that I have spent, and what is my adjusted gross income. And that adjusted gross income is going to be what the income driven option is going to set your payment in or on. What it's going to do is it's going to require that your adjusted gross income be a percentage between 1 to 10% of whatever that adjusted gross income is. So if you make, let's say, $50,000, then you're talking about $50,000 of adjusted gross income. Okay, that means that you actually made more than $50,000 in income, but when it was deducted from your expenses, it came down to 50,000. So your $50,000 that you are earning is going to be a payment plan that is based on that $50,000 that will range between 1 and 10%. So if it's at the highest end of $50,000, you're talking about $5,000 on a monthly payment repayment plan that you'll be responsible for. If it's on the lower end, then you're talking about maybe $500 of the $50,000 that you are responsible to pay back on a regular monthly basis, because this is the new income driven option for how you're going to pay back your loan. Again, what I want to emphasize and I want us to understand is that there is no longer the option for us to decide that we are just going to be in that comfortable state, not having to worry about, not just, worrying about our food and our housing and our transportation and communication, but now when we have these student loans, we're going to have to consider how we're going to pay it back, because no longer will we have the opportunity to eliminate paying back our student loans. That is the new thing that has happened. Now, we did a show a few months ago to kind of prepare everybody for what was coming on July the 1st, but I know a lot of us kind of like maybe heard it and didn't hear it, put it to the side, and didn't maybe get around to contacting the student loan department to see what changes were coming down the line. But now we're already here because we're past the date of July the 1st of 2026. And these plans, these changes have already been implemented. All right. So the older plans like the pay plan and the save plan are all being phased out. The income based repayment plan actually ended as of 2026. Okay, July the 1st of 2026. Now, there is the pay plan that they are going to try to allow to phase out in a way that they are going to drag it out depending on what kind of plan you are currently on. But as of right now, what we know to be true is that the PAYE plan and the SAVE save plan are two plans that a lot of people were on that are being phased out completely. And by July the 1st of 2028, there will not be any of the previous plans established where anyone is paying on those plans previously. So all of those plans are being grandfathered. They're being grandfathered out completely so that there will no longer even be an opportunity for those plans to exist. All right. So then we want to talk about our ability to be able to borrow the money going forward. So, going forward, a graduate who is trying to go to school to get an education, or a student that has graduated from high school and now they're getting ready to go to college, we want to understand that the new rules of student loans is that there is a cap for a new student to go to college to get an education that stops at borrowing $20,500 per year. So, within the lifetime of, let's say, 4 years of going to school, you will no longer be able to borrow more than $100,000 for the lifetime of an education. This is for just the student that has decided they want to go to college. They want to be able to go and, maybe try to figure out exactly what it is that they want to do. Now, that's fine that you're trying to figure out what you want to do, because we all have that opportunity to try to, sort through what is it that we're good at, what is our gifts, our skills, our talents. And hopefully we have been training for that before we even get to the point of going to college. But if we haven't, and we're trying to figure that out in school, we're trying to figure that out in college and going to a university or technical school or whatever, what we want to understand that now college students will no longer be able to borrow more than $20,500 for the year. And if they're going every year, and let's say they decide to double major like my oldest daughter did, then they still cannot exceed more than $100,000 over the time period that they are going to school. So we got to begin to choose a little bit more wisely on what exactly it is that we are going to college for. And we also have to decide that we're going to stick with it. It can't be that we are going to switch up, switch up, switch up, try to double major in this and that, because this US Treasury is no longer allowing us to be able to borrow as much money as we used to be able to borrow. So there is a cap on the lifetime amount of money that every student can borrow per year and for the lifetime of getting an education. All right. Now, if it is a student who is going to school as a professional, when we think of professionals, we think about the medical industry. We think about a professional such as an attorney. We think about a professional that, is normally going to school for a longer period of time because of the particular industry that they are in. So if you are that student, or you have a kid that you are going to be paying for college for them to go to school, then you need to know that if they are a professional, then they have a different option. That option for a professional is for the professional student going to college can actually borrow every year up to $50,000. And then they have, over the period of their lifetime of going to school to get an education professionally, they have a opportunity for getting $200,000 over the lifetime of their education. So if they are going to school for 8 years, if they are going to school for 6 years, or if they're going to school for longer than 8 years, then we need to understand that regardless of what they are professionally going to school for, they can only borrow $200,000 over the period of the lifetime of their education. They cannot exceed $200,000. So you might be thinking like, well, what does this mean for us, for the ones that have to go to college, for the ones that have decided that they need to go back to college, for the ones that maybe are getting ready to go to college or whatever the case? What this means is if you reach your cap, then you will have to depend on your credit to borrow more money. That's right. I told y'all before, credit is up there with oxygen. So if credit is up there with oxygen, doesn't that mean that no matter what the scenario is, we are going to have credit all the time. We're always going to have to depend on credit one way or another. So we don't want to fool ourselves into believing that we can go through life without having credit. It's just not possible anymore. Not for our education, not for our regular daily lifestyles, not for the things that we are going to need over a period of just being alive, y'all. We have to understand that the game has changed, not just in student loans, but in pretty much everything in our life. And if we don't have the opportunity to have good credit and learning the strategies that we should learn, then the problem comes into the equation that we are failing in finances and credit. And if we fail in finances and credit, then that's going to cause a lot of problems in our financial life. All right. And just one more thing I want to share with you guys today about the student loans. If you are a parent of a child who is going to college, then you as a parent can still borrow a Parent Plus loan, but your limitation for your student for the year is only $20,000. And for the lifetime is only $65,000. You know, where the parents, I too was a Parent Plus, I did Parent Plus loans myself for my daughters. And right now, I'm talking about I could borrow up to almost $300,000. So when it says that we can only now borrow with the U.S. Treasury $65,000, then that means that your student will be able to do some of the education and you as a parent will be able to do the other part of the education. But you also need to be thinking about putting your child in a situation where when they come out of high school, that they are ready for credit, that they are ready to be able to get the student loan education that they need, and putting them in a position that even though they are going to college, that they have a understanding that this money has to be paid back and used for what they are going to school for. So we can no longer depend on just being able to borrow like that $300,000 that I could borrow for my kids. You know, we want to be in a better frame of mind to understand that's a lot of debt to pay back if we're not making the kind of money, or if a circumstance happens in our life that we cannot pay that kind of money back, which is why the U.S. Treasury has made these changes regarding student loan debt. So I challenge you today to be able to understand that as it relates to our education, and of course, we need education. Education is definitely endless, and we always can learn something new and grow and be better. But as it relates to our lives, we got to understand that we got to be realistic about what we are doing. It can no longer be that we are just frivolously deciding that we're going to allow this to just be money that we are accumulating that we can pay back over, let's say, by the time we turn like 70 and 80 years old, that we're struggling with our social security checks or our investments, our savings of a lifetime, that we are struggling trying to pay back a student loan debt. Let's get in a different frame of mind while we have the opportunity to pay back the loans and do what we are supposed to do so we don't have to encounter challenges financially with our credit or with our finances later on in life when it matters the most. Okay? All right. And if you have any questions further about student loans and how the student loans that you have work as it relates to your credit, as it relates to your finances, how can you be more informed around student loan debt, then come on over to Kingdom Builders Credit Repair and we will be happy to give you more information on how the plans work and how you can strategize to position yourself for getting out of student loan debt. Okay? We can help you with that. That's what we do. I am a financial advisor and a credit repair owner of this organization. I also have other businesses as well, but we can help you to get out of those situations that you might feel stuck in and looking like there's no opportunity for you to be able to see the light. Okay. So make sure you contact us. You see the information scrolling below. So make sure you give us a call, 844-522-7552. Go to our website, click on the Let's Talk button, put your information in, and let's schedule a time so we can talk about exactly what your changes are going to look like for your future. All right. If you've learned something today, listen, go ahead and let us know below in the comments what you have taken away from today's message. And if you are not subscribed, listen, let's stop dating. Let's go ahead and commit to the Kingdom Builders Credit Repair TV show and podcast. Let's subscribe, let's lock in, and make sure that you set your notifications so you never ever miss another episode of Kingdom Builders Credit Repair, Credit and Financial Tips with yours truly, Michelle Green. Listen, we want to give a quick shout out to CTR Media Network for streaming us to 3.6 billion viewers every single day. We are so grateful for this network. And if you are trying to be seen and heard, you need to go on over to CTR Media Network so you can also be seen and heard, just like Kingdom Builders Credit Repair and our other businesses. Thank you so much again for watching. We'll see you all next time. Take care, all right? Take care. Bye-bye.